Today I am joined by the legendary drummer Eric Singer from Kiss, Black Sabbath, Badlands, and Alice Cooper. Also joining the show we have...
I'm Eric.
Oh, hi.
I'm Eric Fullerton.
And I'm Darrell.
Hey, that's Darrell.
We've been best friends for 32 years.
We are Eric and Darrell.
Today we're going to talk about what we think are the most underrated metal albums from the 80s. This is going to be an incredible group. This is going to be a lot of fun. We appreciate you tuning in. Let's get into it. Here we go. Here we go. I have got the greatest group of guys together to do this metal topic of underrated metal albums of the 80s. This is going to be a blast. We've kind of been talking here even before the show, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I appreciate you joining the stream. We've got Mr. Eric Singer, legendary drummer, and this guy is one of the biggest vintage stereo enthusiasts I've met so far, and we've had a great time just talking gear, all those kind of things. I'll get back to that in a second. We've also got Eric Fullerton and Darrell. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your last name.
Hazelrig.
Hazelrig.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a color and a truck.
That sounds German.
It's English, actually.
English, Hazelrig. Okay.
Yeah.
And if anybody out there hasn't checked out their channel on YouTube, it is the most awesome experience. I stumbled on a video maybe a couple years ago. My wife comes in. I'm a YouTube junkie, and she says, "What are you watching?" And I literally was like, "This is me. This is my childhood right here on film." It was so cool that, they were just like me and my friends growing up, except they recorded it. And there's so many experiences they've caught on video, and they have a whole channel based around it. So you have to go check them out. It is so much fun. It's so nostalgic, and it's so cool.
Thanks, Kevin.
Oh God. It's great. I love watching that channel and just going back to my childhood, even though it's not my childhood. It sure, it right. Sure seems like it. Yeah. And, and then Eric, we've got to get you back. I'm sorry, Eric Singer. We've got to get you back on another stream so we can talk about vintage stereo, because we've had so many amazing conversations, talking about different pieces of gear and kind of the same. I feel like we've got the same ear, and maybe that's because, and I don't mean to lump myself in with you as a drummer, but I did have some time with drum, but yeah,
it's true. I watch your channel, and every time I hear we know it's all subjective, so nobody's opinion or answer is ever wrong. There's no right or wrong things here. It's what you like. But I found that the way you articulate is, I'm like, wow, he hears things, I think, the same way. That's how I hear it. Yeah, I agree with him. So we just seem to be on a very similar wavelength when it comes to be not just about music, but how we hear equipment, how we want to hear it. And and you've been influential, as I've told you before. I've gone out and sought out particular gear and pieces based on Kevin's experiences. It's almost like he gets to try it for you, and you go, since I know I'm like-minded, I completely trust him, and I know, and he's right. Every time I get gear that he talks about, wow, he was dead on. He describes it, at least in my opinion, completely accurately and in full agreement to the way I hear it. So it's just, I guess we're kindred spirits in that regard.
Absolutely, man.
Nice.
I'm glad to be in camp with you on the way I hear things, because it's very humbling. Your career in life has been amazing, and I'm grateful you're here, and I thank all of you. I really do. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. One thing I do want to point out before we jump in, the topic really is underrated metal albums from the 80s, and we have to be loose with both of those terms, underrated and that. A couple of bands a couple of albums that I picked are from really large bands. It's not like the band is underrated. It's more that this album maybe was overshadowed by a bigger one. And then with the term metal, so many bands just kind of got lumped in, like the grunge era that came later. It was more about the look of it almost than it was really about the music.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
where's Eric and Darrell from? Where are you guys at? Which city?
So Eric and I grew up in Huntsville, Alabama. Eric still lives in Huntsville, and I'm in Atlanta now.
So Eric, you must know Eric Dover and Damon Johnson.
I don't think
They're
so.
from that area.
Oh, I should know them then. No, I don't.
Eric Dover played in Jellyfish, and then he played with me and Alice Cooper. He had a band called Imperial Drag, which was very cool, very glammy. And then Damon played in Brother Kane, and we played together in Alice Cooper, and he's played with John Wade, a whole bunch of people. He's in Lynyrd Skynyrd now. He replaced Gary Washington when Gary got sick and then passed away. Damon is the replacement guy now.
Oh, wow, cool.
You said a magical word there, Jellyfish.
Jellyfish, yeah.
I freaking love those guys. I go through like every 2 or 3 years, I pull it out. And even though I've dissected at least Belly Button more than the first one, man, it just seems there's always something new in there. Every time
I saw them open for Tears for Fears. I went with my girlfriend at the time because she liked Tears for Fears, which really wasn't necessarily my favorite because I like more, heavier, hard stuff. But they came out, and I was like, holy shit, who are these guys? And they were unbelievable. And then I ended up, Eric Dover, he sang on the first Slash's Snake Pit record.
That's right. Yeah.
But then he ended up, he was in Jellyfish. And, Queen's my favorite band of all. So
yeah, there's a lot of Queen in there.
You like Queen and Beatles and all that kind of Beach Boys, any of those, all that good vocal stuff. You'll love Jellyfish. During COVID, Eric and some of the guys from Jellyfish had a band called Licorice Quartet. And they did a bunch of tunes. Look it up on YouTube. You'll see Licorice Quartet. You'll see a whole bunch of different songs they did. Kevin, if you like Jellyfish, it's right up that alley.
I'm on it. Yeah, I can't Patrick Manning, I think is another, and he's been with Beck.
Yeah, he's been with Beck.
Yeah, as a songwriter, and you can tell.
It's Roger Manning.
Oh, there you go, Roger Manning. Yeah, that's it. Yep. Yeah, amazing band.
All those guys are like talented.
Oh gosh, crazy.
Let me tell you,
crazy good. No, yeah, I agree. Well, I'll jump in on my first pick, and then we'll just go around. Nobody knows each other's picks, so I think you might want to start with your more popular one because if somebody else has got it in their list and beat you to it, we're kind of a little bit SOL, right? All right, I'm gonna start with this one, not in order. This is W.A.S.P. Live in the Raw, and I doubt there's very much live about this. It does seem like there's a lot of behind the scenes touch-ups and things like that with a lot of live albums,
which was very common with live albums.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know firsthand.
I bet you do. But this one, it's so good. And Eric, I don't know if Eric Singer, I'm not sure if you've ever heard this, but the snare drum on Steve Riley is, and I'm sure it's triggered or something, but it's so good. Blackie Lawless's voice is so good, which I'm sure is probably, tracked later, but this is one of those albums.
But he still sang it because back then you had to sing it.
Yeah, there's no auto-tune or Melodyne or anything like that. Yeah.
There wasn't Pro Tools.
Exactly. Yeah, right. I just love, there's something in Blackie's voice. I don't know if you'd call it his timbre or whatever, but there's a character in there that only Blackie has. Yeah. And I don't know. I that is a once a year listen for me for sure.
Well, interesting enough, Blackie liked I think he'd probably say it himself. He liked Steve Marriott, Humble Pie, and so did Kevin DuBrow. And ironically, they both kind of have that. Nobody sounds like Steve Marriott. That guy was incredible, but they had the influence and the approach, that power thing. And
Yeah.
remember, they did a version of "I Don't Need No Doctor," which was
Yep.
on the Pie Live Rockin' the
It's
Fillmore
on here too.
album.
Yep. Yep.
So, but you know, W.A.S.P opened for Black Sabbath when I did that tour in
Oh, cool.
'86. They were
Cool.
the opening band, and Steve and I was friends with Steve. I met him when I first moved to LA. Funny story about W.A.S.P. So I just moved to LA from Cleveland. That's where I'm from, Cleveland, Ohio. And I joined some local band in early '84. The bass player started taking me around to different clubs like the Troubadour and Whiskey and stuff like that, the Roxy, to show me these are the bands that are getting signed or just got signed. I remember the first show he took me to was at the Roxy, and it was Black and Blue. And
Oh, yeah.
all those years later, I end up in
Tommy
Kiss
Thayer.
with Tommy Thayer.
Yeah, with Tommy.
But
Sure.
I went to go see W.A.S.P, and they had just gotten signed, but they were doing their last show at the Troubadour before they were going to do the record. You couldn't get in. It was packed. I stood in the back alley and watched through the window, like with chicken wire, watching W.A.S.P on stage through the back window.
Yeah.
Before they did that first album, and I loved that first album.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Me too.
Those
Me too.
and then Tony Richards got fired, and they brought Steve Riley in.
Yeah.
So Steve didn't do that record, but he ended up in the band right out of the gate after they got the deal.
He came from L.A. Guns, if I remember right, and then
Well,
went
he-
to.
well,
Or
he
did he
did.
leave?
No, he
Am
was.
I
He had,
reversed?
no, what had happened? He had done Keel.
Okay.
Oh
He did
yeah,
the Keel
Keel.
record.
Yeah,
As soon as he
Ron.
did it, he got the W.A.S.P gig and joined W.A.S.P. So he never played in Keel. He just did the record.
Gotcha.
And then after W.A.S.P was old, when Blackie got rid of guys, he joined L.A. Guns.
L.A. Guns. Yeah, I had it reversed, didn't I?
That's what it was. But I met Steve. He was from Boston originally, but I met him. He had moved to LA around the same time as I did. He was playing in a band called the Bees from Chicago. And we both auditioned for this band that got signed by the Scotty Brothers. They were called Rottweiler. And I was in this band already, and I decided I wanted to stay in my band. Steve ended up doing the gig. The band never the record never came out. And then I ran to Steve later, I think later that year, and then he's in W.A.S.P.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of you guys just jumped band to band to band to band, you know. I mean, just because, you know,
Yes,
that's
sir.
just the way it was, you know.
Yes. Everybody, once you kind of got into the scene, you kind of started knowing everybody from every other band. You'd go catch them out. You became friends with, even if it wasn't the drummer in the other band, you became friends with other guys. You were all kind of trying to do the same thing. And it became kind of like a family, if you will.
Yeah.
And you know, and sometimes you ended up helping each other get gigs or stuff like that as time went on.
Yeah, when you were talking about Blackie's like characteristic voice, do you think that they maybe like have some sort of vocal chain that they always use, like you know, like say Ozzy's voice? It just sound. I mean,
It's
to
always
me, it always
doubled.
sounds like there's a
Ozzy uses a chorus like a
doubling,
doubler. It's a chorus.
Yeah.
right?
And I think Blackie probably does the same. Just
Okay.
assuming.
A
I'm
lot
not
of people do.
Right.
Or they used
Sure.
to use a harmonizer or a thing called aural exciter, not oral,
Mhm.
aural, A-U-R-A-R-U, aural exciter. They use different effects out in the front of the house. The biggest one was the Eventide
Yeah, yeah.
harmonizer. That was
Yeah.
the common one guys used out in front of the house. So it was very commonly used on all the vocals. Sometimes they would add it to everybody to make it sound like doubled up.
Becker. Yeah,
Yeah, before people started using samples.
yeah,
Right.
And then you're triggering the samples on a keyboard.
yeah. Eric, singer, what's your first pick, man?
Okay, my first pick, I'm going to pick Black Sabbath, Born Again, with Ian Gillan on lead vocals.
Yeah, man.
Which came out in '83. After Dio left, you know, they had big success with Ronnie. And Ian Gillan had a solo band after he had been out of Purple all those years. And before they did the Deep Purple reunion, that's why he only did the one record with Sabbath. But that record is very underrated. If you go and listen to it, there's some heavy riffs like Disturbing the Priest, Zero the Hero. Great heavy riffs on that album. And of course, he does all these, you know, his Ian Gillan great
Oh,
high
yeah.
You know, Child in Time was the first one where he started doing all those really high vocals back on In Rock. But that record is, you know, the original band with Bill Ward on drums, who's one of my heroes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just I think everyone owes it to themselves. Go back and listen to that album sometime. Give it a fair shake. You know, right after that, Ian Gillan went back to, there you go. He went back to Deep Purple and then did Perfect Strangers with a reunion of that classic they call that the Mark II lineup of Deep Purple. because Ian was actually the second lead vocalist. Rod Evans was the first one in Deep Purple, and then Coverdale with Glenn Hughes.
Yeah.
But that
I always
record,
think of Ian though for Purple.
of course, because that's what Smoke on the Water.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
You know,
I mean, all that.
Machine Head, and Machine Head's probably I would say the definitive. If I'm going to pick a favorite Deep Purple, I'm going to have to say it's Machine Head.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's most people's in rock, maybe right up there.
Right there.
Know. Yeah.
I mean, my favorite Deep Purple is really, I like Machine Head. I love Burn, which is a different lineup, Coverdale and Glenn Hughes. And I love Come Taste the Band, which is Tommy Bolin on guitar.
Yeah.
Which he was from Sioux City.
Yeah, Iowa. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. He's one of the, there's very few people, besides Slipknot that really did anything out of Iowa. But
yeah, Tommy Bolin was very famous. I mean, he's kind of like Randy Rhoads, where they kind of came and went, very short-lived careers, but did a big impact in a short time.
Yeah.
And he was in a band. He was in a local band there. His brother was a drummer, Johnny Bolin, who died, I think, about a year or so ago. He also played with Black Oak Gargissar for a long time, Johnny Bolin. And I think he played with his brother for a while there. But Tommy Bolin was only 25 when he died, and he had done so much in a short time between the James Gang, Deep Purple. But the record that really put him on the map was Billy Cobham's solo record, Spectrum. And that was the first time you really heard a rock guitar player playing fusion rock jazz with Jan Hammer on keyboards. It's a killer.
Jan Hammer.
Yeah. And it's Lee Sklar, who played on a lot of records with everybody. It's worth checking out. If you want to hear Tommy Bolin at his best, in my opinion, it's that album.
Very cool, man.
Jan Hammer, as we used to think it was pronounced.
Yeah. What are you thinking, Eric? Fullerton?
So I'm gonna go big. I'm gonna go down the obscure ladder here in a minute, but I'm gonna start off with a Kiss album, "Hot in the Shade." I just feel like this was overlooked. Being that it's at the end of the '80s, during their no makeup era, hair metal was like totally oversaturated. People were, turning their attention to like more flashy bands and trying to like look for the next big thing and stuff like that. And me and Darrell love this album. We did music videos for it, on our tennis rackets.
I've seen those. They're awesome.
We did Hide Your Heart and Forever.
Yeah. Of
course, their biggest hits. But the album is great. It's like almost an hour long. It's Eric Carr's last album, as you know.
I got to give you a little bit of little trivia. I played on a bunch of demos on that album.
Oh wow!
Really?
Okay.
Like about
you
4
were
or 5
already in the picture.
Yes, because I played on Paul's solo tour in '89.
Oh, that's right.
And then after that, I was in Badlands at the time, and then Paul called me up and said, "Hey, can you?" Because Eric Carr lived in New York, so he said, "Hey, can you come in the studio and play on some demos for me?" So I went in the studio a couple times. Everything on the drums on that record is all done electronic on pads. Okay. And so I did about 4 or 5 songs, and then one day his secretary called me up and said, "Hey, Paul wants to go in the studio." I go, "I can't because I'm going to Japan on tour. But I have a friend of mine who's a great drummer that I can recommend." And it was my high school friend, Kevin Valentine, who ended up playing on a bunch of the other demos. He played drums on Psycho Circus album.
Oh.
He was in the band Donnie Iris. They had a big hit called Aliyah.
Oh, yeah.
He was the drummer. I went to high school with him. He was like a couple years older than me. So he was like an influence to me, and I looked up to him when I was a young kid because he was the first guy that I knew that made it out of Cleveland. Totally. His band, after he was in a local band, then he got in this band called Breathless. They opened for Kiss in '78.
Who didn't open for Kiss? That list is amazing.
Oh yeah, AC/DC, Priest,
everybody, Aerosmith, Rush.
Yeah, Bon Jovi. It goes on and on.
It does. It's cool.
Singer, you brought up something that kind of triggered a thought that now that you're here, I can maybe ask you, since you're a drummer and you've worked on a lot of albums. Have you ever been in a situation where a producer was like, "Oh, we're just going to use drum machines"?
Well, some people, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, some people get what they call demoitis. So they do a
Yeah.
demo, and they start thinking, well, I like the vibe of the demo. I don't think we can make it better. A band that did that was Georgia Satellites. That "Keep Your Hands to Yourself," that song.
Mm-hmm.
That demo was what got them the record deal. I knew Jeff Glicksman, the producer, that had done that because we worked together. He did like Black Sabbath stuff, but he said that they couldn't get a better version, so they used the demo on the record. They recorded all the other songs for the album fresh, but that version was the demo.
Yeah.
But regarding drum machines, sometimes you'll play along to a drum machine and you'll do an overlay of real drums or tom-tom fills and enhancement to a drum machine track. So I've done that before.
Yeah, because I remember when I found out that Photograph, Def Leppard's Photograph, was all drum machines. It blew my mind, and then I found
it's all
out that,
programmed.
it was a big thing back then.
Actually,
I'm like, well, how would you feel as a drummer? You're like, well, we're not going to need you on the record.
The thing I don't like is that people talk about how the time can move around and there's a certain feel and a push and a pull between a band.
Shuffle.
Like they let the music breathe. Maybe it speeds up a little, slows down in parts. And everybody started getting fixated on everything being dead on to a click. Yeah. Oh, you're a little ahead here, you're a little behind. And then you started having to change how you played to stay accurately with your foot, your snare, and your hi-hat. You had to keep everything right on the grid, as we say. So it kind of takes away from your natural way of playing. But if you didn't know how to play to a click, they'd find somebody else that could in the studio. A lot of times drummers got replaced in studio by ringers, as we called them, or studio guys. Yeah. It was very commonplace in the 60s with the Wrecking Crew. You should watch that movie if you ever get a chance, because it's really worth watching. You find out all these different records, who the guys that really played on a lot of the stuff. But then eventually a lot of bands realized, hey, I got to learn to be better if I'm going to play on my own record. Slaughter, that first album, Stick It To You, that's all programmed drums as well.
Well, yeah. Wow.
But real quickly, I got to tell Kevin, that was Roger Lynn, the Lynn drum machine, which is what people started first using. He's got Lynn turntables and speakers.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
From Scotland?
Yeah. Lynn Sonbeck, the LP12. Yeah, no kidding. I had no idea.
He invented that. I only learned that last year myself.
Yeah, I had no idea. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
What do you got, Mr. Darrell?
My first pick, I am completely breaking the rules. I'm just smashing them all.
You going for an R&B title?
Right, exactly.
He's going for Kajagoogoo.
No, my first pick is Slade Sladist from 1973. Oh. And the reason I picked this very much applies to metal in the 80s, because not only do I think they heavily influenced probably just about everybody, but the fact that Quiet Riot covered two of their songs, and it was like their two big hits right out the gate.
Yeah.
You're right.
So, and they fought it too. They didn't want to do them. At least come on, Feel the Noise. They were like, this is a horrible song. I don't want to do it.
But like I grew up knowing that song as a kid, knowing Quiet Riot.
From Quiet Riot.
And it wasn't until many years later that I learned of Slade, and I actually like the Slade version better. But then I got into, like listening to Slade and going, wow, this is a killer band.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't really quickly, if you ask Gene Simmons, who one of the bands that influenced him and Kiss in the early days of stylistically songwriting, it was Slade.
Really?
Yeah.
They loved Slade. Yeah. And if you listen, some of the more early Kiss, which is more, I call it Chuck Berry style rock, more that type approach. To me, a lot of the early Kiss had that Slade vibe about it. The Slade live album is really good. Really good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You think it was one of those things that we just didn't get it in, like for me in Des Moines, Iowa, Slade just wasn't, I didn't know of Slade, until later in the 90s. And I wonder if it was just like, because they're from Europe, I'm pretty sure, right?
From the UK.
Yeah.
Well, for me, like, I think Eric can attest to this as well. Like, we were not adventurous. Like we didn't have much older siblings that had a record collection from the 60s and the 70s. I had much older parents. So when we got into the car, it's all like, the 50s,
Sure.
40s, stuff like that.
El
So there
Shannon.
was a big divide. So the only way I was getting my music,
MTV.
we were the first
Yeah.
generation of
Yep.
it. We sat down on
Absolutely.
the
Yep.
couch in front of the TV, and
Yep.
whatever was coming out of MTV
That's
is what
right.
we listened to.
Same here. Yep.
So Slade wasn't on MTV, so I didn't know
No.
about Slade.
Yeah,
Yep.
it makes sense. I mean, they really were part of that early 70s glam-ish era, which was
Yeah.
Sweet, Queen, Mott the Hoople,
Yep.
David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust, even Alice
Yep.
Cooper in America. Kiss, to me, fell into that category in America. We didn't have that many bands that were kind of glammy-ish in America compared to England. England was much more fashion forward.
Totally.
And so when Kiss came along, I thought, wow, these guys are kind of cool. They seem more like one of these English bands. They have an image. There's more rock and roll.
Right.
And so I gravitated towards it right away.
Yeah.
The speaking of Kiss, how I was introduced to Kiss? MTV. Look it
Yeah.
up. The
Oh yeah.
1983.
1983. Yeah.
What wasn't that their first no makeup?
Unmasked.
On makeup.
No, yeah.
Yeah, and I saw that and I was like, wow. And then I mean, if it wasn't on MTV, we didn't know about it. But coming into this show talking about underrated, 80s albums or metal albums, it's like we can look back and see why they were underrated. But then now, like me and Darrell, we're always like researching the past. Like, what did I miss? What else did I miss? So.
Yep. Well, that'll be my second pick then. Where do I got it? Oh, I got it right here. And my dog, this sucks. And this is my
Hey.
Kiss record, but my dog
Oh no!
ate the corner. I do have the reissue version, the
Where's mine?
acrylic version.
Yeah.
But this record, man, it's got some of my favorite things. I think Saints and Sinners, Gene's voice on this thing, I think it's his best vocal recording ever. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's Eric Carr's first appearance, at least in America. I know he was on Killers overseas.
No, he was on The Elder.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
He
yeah.
was on The
Yeah.
Elder.
I wonder why I forget about that record, but
Because most
Anyway.
most people forget about that record.
You couldn't even
Although
get
there are
it
some cool
when we
songs
were
on it, to be
kids.
fair.
It
Yes.
was unavailable.
Yeah.
yeah, no, and you're right too. Something interesting when I was thinking about this album with Kiss, that is, for some reason, the first 3 records with the new drummers are my favorite albums. So Kiss, Peter, Chris, amazing. Well, and you know what, that ruins it though, because this wasn't Eric Carr's first album. Because I was going to say Revenge with You, those are my 3 favorite Kiss records.
Wow, that's
But yeah, that's all spoiled now.
Well, Kevin, hold on. I was going to choose Creatures, but I didn't because I thought, that's a little bit too close to home. So because I thought that record, that was the 10th anniversary of them. They did the tour was the 10th anniversary tour, it was called, and that tour did very poorly, and they thought that was kind of near the end of the band. That's what made them, I think, partially influenced them to take the makeup off and said, hey, we need to reinvent ourselves. But the record was really great. Unfortunately, people got disenchanted after The Elder because they tried to be conceptual.
Well,
Yeah.
and don't you think they kind of, because with the Elder and it got, to where it was, that was the backlash from it. And then the same with Revenge, man.
Yeah.
If you look at Hot in the Shade, where it is, they're kind of doing a 90-degree turn right there.
Yep.
with Revenge. And even in the title and Creatures of the Night, it's just it got them back to maybe what the more core audience wanted, which was me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would say Creatures of the Night sonically really sounds like newer Kiss. Like I
Yeah.
think it was the first one. Like you could put that right up next to Animalize, or any
Sure.
others in that era.
Asylum.
And you would be like, yeah, that's the same band.
Well, they did that record. Ace doesn't play on that record at all.
Yeah.
Was
You
that
know he's on
Vinny?
the cover. Ace is not. It's all different guys. It's
Okay.
it was Steve Ferris from Mr. Mister. He's on no song. Actually, what's his name? Robin Ford, the more jazz guitar player. He's on a song. They use different studio musicians. Ace agreed to still be on the record cover. They were trying to keep him in the band, but he wanted to leave. And then eventually he did leave, but he never played on that album. So it's really all studio cats on guitar.
Well, this has got Bryan Adams recorded or co-wrote a couple of songs. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
he did.
And the drums on this, man, you know, I love it loud. I think they work great because they're I mean, there's so much reverb on these drums. It's insane.
Yeah.
I think they were kind of going for like a When the Levee Breaks, Led
Yeah.
Zeppelin type of thing. And then on
Yes.
some songs, it's almost it gets blurry. But you know, that's just personal thing. I love the record.
You know,
I think it's great.
that was using ambient mics. So if you use room ambient mics, you know, you put a close mic and hit the snare here. That millisecond delay by the time it hits the other mic creates that bigness.
Sure.
So they did. The guy that engineered it was a guy named Nico Bolas. And when we did Revenge, that same engineer engineered that album.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Yeah, we did that
Very
at
cool.
Music Grinder, which is was the Captain Tennille studio.
Huh.
Out in
Just
the
getting their
West
vibe into Revenge.
Yeah.
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 I think GNR did. I think some Appetite at that studio too.
Huh?
At Music
Cool.
Grinder. It was a famous studio. So, anyways, yeah, I was going to list that record myself. So, like you said, come up with extra ones because somebody's going to double up on you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I had
now's
that on
your
my
chance.
extra list. That was my extra list.
Oh, okay.
What's your next pick, Jeez.
Me?
Your
me?
next pick. Yes, sir.
Okay. Iron Maiden, Killers.
Ooh, there we go.
Oh, Killers.
Yep.
I like that. I know that record only. You know, if you're an Iron Maiden fan, then it doesn't maybe fly under the rainbow. I mean, under the radar. But the thing is, once Bruce Dickinson came in, they just went to the next level. As we know, MTV, Run to the Hills, the video.
Oh, yeah, sure.
That
Yeah.
just, at least to us, broke them really big in America.
Yeah.
And clearly, the band just went to another level. But I always loved Paul Di'Anno. I like to, like, kind of more of a punk style of singing, and I think that record's really great for me.
It's definitely different though, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a different era. It's the earlier era of Maiden, but a lot of
Yeah.
if you're a Maiden fan, you have to respect it. I think all Maiden fans respect that Paul Di'Anno era stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Pink Floyd for me, where you know the Syd Barrett stuff is so different than you know the Gilmore Waters more vocal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Iron Maiden's the same way because Bruce Dickinson, it just changed, and both are great. You know, I wouldn't want to pick either or the other. Same with Pink
No.
Floyd. I like both.
They're different. I mean, I
Yep.
have to give it to Bruce though, because Bruce is the one that put him to the
Oh,
next
man.
level. He's a
Yep.
great front man.
Still
and,
is.
And he's got the style. You know, we did a show once in London. I think it was the 10th anniversary, of Freddie Mercury's death. They did this kind of benefit show at this club called Ocean, and a bunch of different people came. I was playing drums, and a bunch of people came up and played. Paul Young, and so Bruce Dickinson showed up, and he said, "I want to sing a song." They go, "Okay, cool. What do you want to do?" And he said, he said, "Oh, he'll do. I want to break free. You know, I want to break free." So he wrote the lyrics on, and we kind of ran it down backstage, and he came out and sang it, holding reading the lyrics off of a piece of paper. But he did it really great. It was very
Wow.
impressive that he was
Wow.
able to cop the spirit and the vibe of it, because you wouldn't think of him being a Queen singer. Not that he's not a fan, because his favorite singer, he always said, was Ian Gillan of Deep Purple.
Yeah.
Mm.
I bet
And
that's common.
you can see the resemblance.
Correlation, absolutely.
That's a funny story. When we were playing the Hammersmith Odeon in '86 with Black Sabbath, Ray Gillan, who ended up in Badlands, was the singer at the time. And we did a gig. And I remember after the show, they had a bunch of people were there. I remember Brian May came there and Uli Roth from Scorpions.
Oh yeah.
And I remember him standing on the side stage watching the whole time. Anyways, after there's a bar upstairs at the Hammersmith Odeon, and Ray Gillan, I remember he was kind of a little bit bummed out because he said that Bruce Dickinson came up to him and asked him. He said, So what's your last name? He goes, Gillen. He goes, yeah, right. And Ray thought that he felt that he was getting dissed by Bruce because Bruce loved Ian Gillan, but they spelled it different. It was Ray spelled it Gillen, and Ian Gillan's Gillan. And that was Ray Gillan's real name. But he thought, because Ray kind of had the long hair like Ian Gillan did, and
Sure.
he, in that style, of singers.
Definitely. Yep.
So Bruce, I think, thought maybe this guy just made up the last name, and he didn't. So Ray, I could tell Ray was a little like dejected.
Oh man.
Because when you meet people that are kind of like famous at that point, and you're not, and you're just on your way up, you want, your first impression, you want to, you can maybe be sensitive and take something the wrong way.
Sure.
But
No,
I thought it was kind of
absolutely.
funny.
Yeah. Mr. Fullerton, you got your
All right.
pick?
Yeah. All right. Let's get a little weird.
All
gentlemen.
right. Time to get weird.
Let's go back to 1983 and look at Thor's Unchained album. This is a definite overlooked gem in the early 80s epic fantasy metal genre.
Man.
And of course, so this was 1983. It wasn't even the only one released that year. You had Manowar, Warlord.
Oh, yeah.
You had Dio released Holy Diver that year, which obviously got all of the attention. It's got catchy but like powerful anthems, but it didn't really become like, it became a cult classic, obviously, like much
From the
later.
cover.
But at the time, yeah, just the cover alone, it's like, whoa, I want to see that
That's a
movie.
wall
Is that a
hanger
movie?
for
Or,
sure.
yeah. But it's just filled with just fun. Like this week, I've listened to front and back. It got a reissue in 2015 because it's a cult classic, and they put like 12 more tracks on it, so it's just full with all these songs. But
Did you ever see him blow up the hot water bottle?
no, I've heard that he did all these like kind of sideshow stunts and like beats
He
of
would take like a
strength
hot
and
water
stuff.
bottle thing, and blow it up and make it explode. He had the lung capacity to do that.
Wow.
Crazy.
Actually, my friend Carl Cochran, who passed away earlier this year, Carl used to play bass with Ace Frehley at one point, but Carl and I met 30 years ago. Carl played, when he was a young kid, he played in one of those versions of Thor.
Huh.
Wow.
I had never heard of him. I'll be honest with you. I didn't know
Canadian. He's
Thor.
Canadian.
So if you've never heard of him, search for Anger by Thor on YouTube. That's their epic music video. It is great.
Okay.
It'll get you hooked.
I
Cool,
had
man.
never heard of them until Eric and I did a video on cheesy metal videos of the 1980s, and Eric had curated this list, and it's on our YouTube channel, and that was my first introduction to Thor.
Yeah.
And wasn't there a documentary on them?
Yes, there is, but I think it might be. I did see it once before. It might be on YouTube, baby, if you look for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super cheese, but just fun. I don't know. Yeah. It's good
I
stuff.
liked Manowar. I went through a phase with them, but yeah, I totally missed Thor. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I think you have to have a sense of humor. Like, of course, everybody has seen Spinal Tap.
Oh,
And,
man.
the people don't realize, I can tell you many anecdotes that are taken right from, you're thinking like, is this from the band I was in? Because I remember this stuff happening.
Sure.
But I can tell you one of the incidents they actually took it from. When they did the Stonehenge, and then the little Stonehenge comes down from the ceiling, it's really tiny. Well, you know where they got that from? On the Black Sabbath Born Again tour, they made a Stonehenge stage set. It was so big, it couldn't fit in the arenas. So that's a real thing. They took the opposite, and they made it really small as a joke. And that came from Black Sabbath Born Again tour.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I guess we're not playing Stonehenge tonight then, right? I think that was the quote. Mr. Darrell, what do you think, man?
Okay. So this is a band I wasn't familiar with back in the 80s. Only discovered them later, and go back and listen to them and wonder, like, why weren't they on MTV? Why wasn't everyone I knew talking about them? Yesterday and Today, otherwise known as Y&T. Oh yeah, there's he blowing up the.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Watch. He's gonna blow it up. He's on. This was an interview on. It's on YouTube. It said, "I just looked up Thor hot water bottle." There it is. I remember I've seen it before. I saw it on TV years ago.
Wow, he's really going for it. Too.
He's gonna pass out.
I know. It's like
He
hyperventilating.
did pass out trying that.
I think it's gonna blow up at some point here. Sorry to interrupt you, but I had to show you because it was worth it.
Yeah, it is worth it.
Well, it's like all the look at we can't take ourselves too serious.
This is
God,
like
no.
this is like an Instagram video. You ever watch those where you're like, is something
is
what's the point
something
of
gonna
this? Is
happen?
something gonna
Yeah.
happen? Like,
Yeah, where they pull out all the chemicals to clean the toilet and they never clean it.
right,
They just
exactly.
dump like $100 worth of chemicals in there.
Right.
I don't know if it's got to blow up here anytime soon.
Wow, it's like 2 times the size of his head.
Oh yeah, but it's a real hot water bottle. He used to do this as part of his shtick. It's just like Blackie Lawless used to have the raw meat.
Raw
He put
meat.
the
Oh,
girl
yeah.
in the rack, and there
Oh,
he
there it
goes.
Oh.
We got payoff.
Yeah, and Blackie, that's how they got a lot of attention. Well, same thing with Kiss. They
Yeah.
Gene would they'd get a forklift and put it on the drum riser to make the drums go up, and Gene would breathe fire, and
Yeah.
he set the alarms off in Cleveland the first time they played there, and they had to empty the club out because all the smoke alarms went off from all the fire that Gene did. So that and Gene caught he caught his hair on fire. He caught the curtains on fire before. I remember we did Heaven's on Fire, the song, when I first joined the band. We were in Wales, Monmouth, I think Monmouth. Anyways, they had this. It looked like a kind of a metal chrome roof above us, and we were doing Heaven's on Fire with the flames. It caught the roof on fire during the song. So Spinal Tap does happen in every band.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. Were you gonna say Y&T? Darryl?
Y&T. Yeah.
Y&T. Cool, man.
Good band.
Their 1981 album Earthshaker. If you didn't know that the lead singer was Dave Menichetti, you would think it was Sammy Hagar, because like the vocals are so similar. But this is just like start to finish, great rock and roll. And you would have expected them to be just as big as like every other band. But like, I don't know, they just kind of got looked over from my perspective.
No, you're
Summertime
right. You're
Girls
absolutely
was their
right.
big song, I think, right? Summertime Girls. Wasn't that their biggest song, probably?
MTV, yeah. Basically, they got
Yeah.
signed by Geffen. John Clarner wanted to try to get him more commercial. He wanted them to get rid of the drummer, Leonard Hayes. And Jimmy DeGrasso, who I'm friends with, got the gig. And they tried to make him go more of that commercial route. But they were never that kind of more, pretty boy band. They were a hard rock band. And
Yeah.
Leonard was a great drummer. He was always known for having a good foot, if you're a drummer. And he would always... the first gigs when I first joined Lita Ford, we opened for them, I remember, and Leonard would smoke and he'd have an ashtray mounted on his hi-hat, Kevin, and he'd be smoking, and he'd put the ashtray there, and
Absolutely.
oh
I
yeah,
did the same thing. Yeah, I think I don't remember if it was Pearl or Tama that made an actual ashtray, and it was just to clamp onto your hi-hat,
Yeah.
You didn't have to finagle anything. They're like, we've got it covered for you.
absolutely.
Yeah. You know what's funny about bands like Y&T too? I mean, how many albums do you think they put out? Probably 6, maybe 5?
Oh, more than that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
more than that, because
Yeah,
they had
they
quite
were
a few
like-
in the 70s, and then
Yeah,
all
they
throughout
came out.
the
They
80s.
They originally were called Yesterday and Today.
Yes,
And they
that's
shortened it to
right.
Y&T. If you can find old ads from the 70s playing around LA, and they're from the Bay Area or up there, you could find all the old ads used to advertise them as Yesterday and Today.
Well, the cool thing though was back then, they used to nurture artists, or they wouldn't make them, you didn't have to have a hit single. They would, we're going to give you this producer this time, and they would, kind of work their career up, where now it's like, you don't have a banger song, a first album, you're gone.
I mean, look at
it-
Journey. Like their first
Yeah.
3 albums were snooze fest.
Yeah.
And then finally, like, okay, you need a singer.
Right. But they gave him 3 albums.
They gave him 3
and
albums.
you wouldn't even get, the second
yeah.
one.
Oh yeah.
They would develop bands and
That's
develop
right.
a career, give them time, and usually some bands wouldn't hit till third, fourth album. Very
Totally.
commonplace. And now is like if you didn't, by the time when I had a record deal with Badlands, if you didn't sell gold on your first album,
It was over.
bye bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's too bad.
Yeah.
But I guess now, with all the auto tune and everything at Beat Detective, and you really can pick the person off the look and then put the music behind it rather than the other way around, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Dangerous Toys. Anybody familiar?
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man. Talk about Beat Detective, Eric Singer.
Yeah.
There's more push pull in this thing. Like you cannot play. You couldn't put any of this to a click. But that's the beauty of it. That adds to the rawness of it. It's not grid. It doesn't feel like a robot is playing these drums.
Early Kisses like that. Those first
Absolutely. Yeah.
Alice Cooper band, same thing. Early Alice Cooper.
Yeah. you strip there. Rick Beato just did a video not too long ago where a drummer had taken a Bonham part and almost gridded it or played it correct, and it sounds so freaking weird without the swing and the push and the pull of what he did, which is what he did. I mean, he was probably the best at feel. So I think we're missing a lot of that. In music.
People that analyze John Bonham sometimes say that Bonham's the key to why it felt behind the beat, as they always claim English drummers play, that his foot was really more on the late side. His foot didn't play dead on the one. He kind of was always a little more relaxed with it, and it gave it a lot of weight. And a certain swing. That's why I said when you have to play on a click, you start readjusting your body. Oh, you start realizing, I'm a little late on my backbeat. Oh, I need to be really more on top with my hi-hat, or my foot's a little bit rushing. And you start realizing that's taken away from your individual feel that you have.
Totally. Yeah, it's too bad.
I agree.
That's changed. Yeah. What's your next pick, Eric Singer? What you got?
Okay. Well, I'm going to say King's X.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Power trio.
Okay, I'm going to either Out of the Side of the Planet, which is the first album, or Gretchen Goes to Nebraska. Either album. Those are the first two. They're both in the 80s. They were on Atlantic, so they were label mates at one time, or I was label mates with them, I should say. Those guys are very unique. Every musician or every band loves them. They've always been,
a band's band.
A band's band, big time. Everybody liked Ty Tabor's guitar playing, his tone, very unique. You got Doug Pinnick, who's a killer bass player, but he's got that kind of an R&B style voice. And Jerry Gaskell, I thought his drumming, he plays very simplified in a very unique way, because what he plays is not simple. When you try to learn it or emulate it, you realize, he creates so much simplicity and space that you would have a tendency maybe to want to play more if you were playing the song. And then you realize, that's the beauty of how his interpretation of those song ideas and riffs are amazing. And their vocals are killer. The harmonies.
Yep. Absolutely. For a three-piece band, they're monsters for a three-piece band. He's kind of like the Ringo of metal in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, super tasteful, but I'll take tasteful over technical any day of the week.
Absolutely.
Personally. Yeah.
Another drummer that was like that was, now I'm going to the prog era, the band Gentle Giant, which is very, very avant-garde, if you will, very unusual influences. The drummer John Weathers that was in that band, he has a way of playing that complicated, odd time and progressive music in a very simplified way, kind of like Jerry Gaskell does with King's X. And he's so tasteful. I'm like, man, this guy's great. He's not as busy as like Carl Palmer was and Alan White or Bill Bruford, Phil Collins, Genesis. He never played to that as busy as those guys, but very musical and a cool. For me, at least, I always really loved Gentle Giant.
For me, it's kind of like, not to just go on a tangent of drumming. It's hard when I'm talking to you, though. It's kind of like that person that never says anything, but then when they do, you listen, and that type of drumming for me is what that does. You know, it's like, because they're not doing a lot of flourishes or things like that. When they do something, it's got more impact on it.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Those a certain fill and one time in the song, you remember it because it stands out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the Cars were like that, I think.
Oh man, I love the Cars. That early footage of them in like those small clubs where they're practically playing the first record forward to back. They could have just hit record, and it could have been the first album. And no, it's so spot on. I'm just amazed at how good those guys were.
Yeah, really, a lot of those bands really played great together. Like Boston was that way. Certain
Boston
bands that were just great live, right out of the gate, playing in clubs. I saw Boston at a club on their first tour. I think their first record had only been out maybe a month or 3 weeks, and they played the Cleveland Agora. They were amazing. And a year later, the next summer, they were playing Giant Stadium. So they went from boom, you know, they just
they rocketed. That first, wasn't it the best-selling debut album of all time?
It wasn't until Appetite for Destruction knocked it off.
Oh,
that's right. Yeah.
Appetite's the biggest selling debut because Steven Adler, I've known Steven for 40 years. He always says that we knocked off Boston with
good for him, man. You know, I mean, that's a good thing to be able to say.
Yeah, really.
There's another guy, Kevin, speaking of guys that play simply and for the song, and it works perfect. Steven Adler.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Steven Adler. Rocket Queen is one of the coolest drums.
Yeah.
It really is, man.
It's
It's so unique to put that disco into that. I don't know. I just thought it was genius. His cowbell work is awesome. Yeah, I think he brought the cowbell back, you know, in that era. Nobody was really using cowbells, and then everybody was using cowbell.
Yeah.
I do want to see the cowbell come back. And, you know, I was thinking, you know, how you have like double bass, you know, for each foot, right? What if you had double cowbell?
But you need Will Ferrell to do it.
Did anyone ever consider that? I don't know.
That's
Maybe
awesome.
Thor can do it. I don't know.
You ready for your next pick?
Yes, and I'm gonna keep it cheesy. We're going Candlemass here with 1987 Nightfall. So, you know, dark fantasy themed, but I think didn't they kind of pioneer the epic doom metal genre in a way?
I don't know.
I mean, I know like Black Sabbath probably would have been, you know, the inventor. But
these guys, you had the Norwegian black metal.
Right, true.
Yeah.
But this one was more, you know, melodic. Say what? Oh, what'd you say?
I know who they are, but I'm not familiar with it, so I can't comment on Candlemass.
Oh, okay. So if you haven't heard of these guys,
I've heard of them. I just don't know that song. That record, I should say.
Oh, okay. Check out the music video "Bewitched." That is the best music video. He's like Messiah Marcolin is, you know, the lead singer. In fact, they announced that he is going to be reuniting Candlemass for a one-time only performance this year.
Oh, very cool.
In
Where
Greece.
at, do you know? Oh, Greece.
The Rock Hard Festival in Greece in September. So there's a cult following, just like all these other band, you know, overlooked dark fantasy themed bands. But it's just great. The whole album's great.
Is that a genre you typically? I mean, are you pretty versed in the?
I like showmanship. I like. Have you heard the band Lordy?
Yeah, of course.
Lordy's great.
I'm good friends with him.
Really?
Yeah, every time we would play in Europe, Tommy, which spelled Tommy, T-O-M-I, he would always write to me and ask me to put him on the guest list, and he'd always come back and say hi and take pictures and stuff because they won the that European song thing. That's how they got discovered.
Yeah, wow. The Euro whatever.
The Voice, but
Eurovision or whatever.
Yeah, Eurovision. Yeah, right. Yeah.
They won that, but he's a big Kiss fan. That's why he does the whole shtick. Kevin, do you know the band Bathory? They were like from that whole black metal scene. Swedish band. Anyways, Bathory, the drummer, Jonas Åkerlund, look him up. When you get it, write his name down. Jonas,
Yeah,
Jonas Åkerlund, Akerlund, Åkerlund.
Okay.
Look him up. He was the drummer. Bathory was kind of very influential in the early days of the black metal stuff. That some of those guys, that one band, he did a documentary on it, where the one guy, they ended up burning churches and killed people.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen the trailer for that. Yep,
okay,
yep.
Jonas produced that. Go look him up on Wikipedia. Look at all the stuff this guy's produced, like Madonna, Paul McCartney, Ozzy.
Wow.
This guy's made films. He did, the drummer from Bathory ended up becoming a famous live and concert director and producer of all those documentary films. A big artist, big stuff. Won a lot of. He's really and a super cool guy. I met him through Kiss as well. He would come to Kiss shows. But he's from. The only way I'm aware of some of those bands of that scene was from Jonas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a tight-knit group, I imagine. You know, it's a pretty niche genre. I had friends that were into it. I just, it just didn't get me, is all.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, me too.
Well, how old is everybody?
I'm
51.
48.
49?
49, 51.
Yeah, and I'll be 67 in May. So there you go. I mean, I've got a lot of music generation ahead of you guys. So it's understandable why we may or may not relate or even know of certain music,
Sure. Yeah. And some things just grab other people, it's some music I feel like you almost got to put work into, or you got to have a really close friend that is filtering, a certain genre for you and just giving you the good stuff. I've had that happen before.
Yes.
And, whereas if I just hear a song randomly, I don't know the backstory behind it, because a lot of times that helps me get me into a band, is knowing, the backstory of who they are, where they came from, and it helps sell me on it. But yeah. Mr. Darrell, what you thinking, man?
Well, I'm going to quickly skip over one of my picks.
Oh, there you go.
Well, since you already did it, but I'll just say that like back in the day when I was a kid, for some reason I just didn't connect with W.A.S.P. The whole shock rock thing, I don't know. I was just more of a Motley Crue, Kiss, that kind of thing. It wasn't until much later that I discovered wow, Blackie can really write some catchy frickin' tunes. The whole every song on that album, is pretty great. But we've talked about W.A.S.P. Let's move on.
Well, no. I mean, I totally agree with you. I think W.A.S.P., for the same reason that you just said, they kind of did get a bad rap, and there was, but the songwriting, when you look at it, is so good, and it just got overshadowed, I think, by maybe the shtick.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way. I didn't really come into W.A.S.P. honestly until the Headless Children, probably when Frankie Benali joined, and they, it was such a different album than the rest of their stuff. And then I ended up going backwards, but it was in the Headless Children where I was like, there's a lot more here than just gimmicks, which I think is what a lot of people thought W.A.S.P. were.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially the PMRC. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
They were just all over him.
Yeah.
But I was gonna go ahead and move on to Shark Island from 1989.
Yeah.
I know that.
What I didn't know about Shark Island was that they had been around since, formed in 1979. So they spent most of the 80s just banging away on the strip. Didn't get an album until 89. And unbeknownst to Eric and I, we had used, because we made a lot of movies when we were kids, and we would just steal people's music and put it in as soundtrack. And they had two songs off of the Bill and Ted soundtrack. But we didn't pay attention to the band name at the time. So we didn't realize it was Shark Island, but those songs, Father Time and Dangerous.
Oh, Father Time. Yeah.
But
that Kiss song, the Kiss's version of God Gave Rock and Roll to You was on the second Bill and Ted's Bogus Adventure,
Oh, right.
which was an Argent song that Kiss reworked, and that was the first thing I ever played on with Kiss.
Oh, cool.
Oh, cool.
Was God Gave Rock and Roll to.
Wow,
But
that's crazy.
real quickly, Rick, the singer, I met him before. He was in a band called Pretty Poison, not Poison, but Pretty Poison. They were LA band. And when I first moved to LA, right when I got the gig with Lita Ford, the guy that owned the rehearsal place called the Rock House in North Hollywood, that's where Black Sabbath and Lita Ford rehearsed their Autograph. And the guy that owned the place was the bass player in that band with Rick. And but if you watch him, that's where, you know, Axl Rose's snake moving dancing thing.
Yeah.
That's who he got it from.
Yeah.
He got it from the singer in Shark Island.
That's crazy.
If you watch old videos, that guy was doing those stage moves before Axl Rose.
Everybody borrowed everything, man.
Of course.
You know? Yeah.
Like I always say, you make your own soup. You just take all the ingredients of the things that you are influenced by and you like, throw it in a pot, and that becomes you.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, cool. I'm gonna check this. So Father Time, that's the track you should give a listen to if for people that are unfamiliar with Shark Island.
Very cool.
Very cool. I think we're at the 1 hour mark. And it looks like we might have a big sale because they're clearing off the cart. So
You having a big sale going on? Yeah. Kevin, I got to ask you about buying. Do you not ship some of the stuff like the speaker stands that you have on your site?
Oh yeah, we ship speaker stands. Yeah,
Oh,
we
I thought you
ship
told me you don't ship.
No, everything on the website we ship. It's just the
okay.
vintage electronics we don't. Yeah.
Smart move.
Yeah, man.
It's too expensive and they damage it.
Yeah, or you know, it's 50-year-old pieces of electronics, man. And if you ship an 80-pound receiver to California and there's the smallest issue, man, you're shipping it back and then you're shipping it again, and it just becomes such a nightmare that it's just not worth it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree.
You know?
I agree. It's so
absolutely
expensive to ship now. It's so expensive.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, Kevin, why don't we do this? You want to just, if you want to, you know, everybody can give just without getting too in depth on it.
Oh, sure.
You know, because
Yeah,
I had
yeah.
a few more.
Okay,
Was I next?
yeah, go for it, man. Absolutely.
Well, we'll just call them honorable mentions then. For
There you go.
Because I was going to say Blue Murder, the first album.
Oh
Blue
yeah,
Murder.
yeah, for sure.
John Sykes, Carmine Peace, and Tony Franklin.
Yeah.
Really great record. Sykes is such a killer guitar player. He unfortunately passed away recently.
Yep.
And he wrote that whole Whitesnake album with Still the Night. He wrote all that stuff and never really got his due because he got fired by Coverdale, fired everybody. And unfortunately, you know, he really was an integral part of that record being what it was.
Well, they weren't able to recreate it again. You know, I mean, that's why that album is such a standout, at least with me.
Yeah, but I really like Sykes' Blue Murder. You know, he was a great singer and a great guitar player. Nice guy, really nice guy. And then I've got a couple other honorable mention. I was going to say, what did I have here? A band called Raging Slab. Did you know them?
I haven't heard of them.
Check
I'm
them out.
writing all these down.
Check it out. And the Bullet Boys' first album.
Oh God, yeah. It's great.
I mean, I don't care what says. I know Mark Twain can be a polarizing individual for lack. I'll be nice because I like Mark, but I know he can be polarizing. But the guy's a talented guy. He could sing and he could play guitar. You know, he auditioned for Kiss at one point. He used to play guitar in Rat. He's like an Eddie Van Halen style. He really can play. But that record, you know, Ted Templeman produced it. That's why it has a Van Halen sound to it, if you will, sonically. It's a great record, just a great rock record. The band was so great. I thought, you know, I know Jimmy DeAnderson, the drummer. I saw him when he was in a local band when he was 16. He was I always said, this kid's going to make it. He's really great. And, of course, he did. And they were just a great band and very underrated. And
even Freak Show, the second album.
Yeah.
Great, too.
Yeah, remember they
Carmine
did that.
Peace.
But check out Raging Slab. Kind of like heavy, kind of a southern rock influence. They're from New York, but really, really cool. That first, I met them when we were doing a record at a record plant in New York in '89. They were recording that one record at that time. I think it's just called Raging Slab. And they had a girl. She passed away a few years ago, but she played slide guitar, and it's real heavy, and that slide gives it a little of a southern tinge to it, if you will. But
Very cool, man. Yeah, I'd never heard of.
they were on
never heard of
MTV.
it.
They had a song called "Don't Dog Me," which was an MTV video.
Yeah.
But I think they're worth checking. I was going to say Pride and Glory, Zakk Wylde's first solo band, but that came out in like 91, 92 or something. That's a really good record too, and very underrated, I think.
I love Zakk Wylde. That was actually one of them that I was going to talk about. Probably my favorite 80s metal album, Ozzy's No Rest for the Wicked. I love that. I think it's so underrated. It's pure evil. It's almost borderline thrash at some points.
Miracle, that Miracle Man riff.
Yeah. Oh God, that whole album, Devil's Daughter, Bloodbath in Paradise, breaking all the rules.
Bloodbath, great record.
This Randy Castillo and
when
Geezer.
they were doing that record, Bob Daisy, who played bass on all those records except for Ultimate Sin, Bob played on all those records up to and including what was that one? No More Tears.
Yeah.
Bob played on that. Bob's the guy to, he wrote all the lyrics for Ozzy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Got full credit for it. Crazy Train, Flying High Again. That's Bob. Those lyrics. He's a killer bass player. We played together in Gary Moore's band. Killer bass player, and he played on the Black Sabbath album Eternal Idol. We played on that together. Killer bass player. And I remember he was doing the record, staying at my house because he lived in Australia, but he was staying at my house in North Hollywood at the time. So he would play me some of the riffs and stuff while they were doing that album when Zakk first joined. And in fact, we went to the NAMM show, Bob and Zakk and I. Zakk was a young kid. This was early 89 or 88. Bob, we took Zakk to the NAMM show for his first time.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
There's good memories. But he plays killer on that album.
Yeah, everybody did. That album's just amazing.
Really, really good. Yeah, Randy Castillo, another great guy. Too bad passed away. Nice guy, great drummer, and that was one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet, Randy Castillo.
Oh, that's cool. I always like hearing that when you like somebody and you hear.
Let me tell you, every time you saw him, he'd always have a smile. He'd be, Eric, how you doing? He was always just the coolest, nicest guy. And it's such a shame that he passed away so young.
Yeah, that's too bad. I heard Eric Carr was like a genuine, like the most down-to-earth, nice person ever.
People say the same. I only met Eric twice, but it was very briefly, so I didn't ever get to know him. But everybody tells me the same thing. Nice guy. Very cool.
Yeah. How about you, Eric Fullerton? Do you have a?
Yeah. So I'll just I had three more. I'll just one of them was Autograph. That's the Stuff.
Yeah.
And then Femme Fatale's first album, and then also. But I'll comment on the third one here. It's Pride by White Lion, 1987. Not just a one-hit wonder. No. I thought they had some great songwriting. They sang about things that weren't just partying and chasing women. Yeah. And, they had like less of a sleaze factor, I felt like, Yeah. Vito was awesome on the guitar. Yeah. But I think really they only got on MTV is because like Mike Tramp had like perfect hair and he had that like hip thrust technique, Well,
think about this. Bon Jovi had just blown up big. So between records, Bon Jovi wasn't around on the scene, and White Lion came along, and there's the next good-looking guy. Yeah. And MTV was all about that. For that, unfortunately, a lot of bands that if you didn't have that look, and I think that's why you had bands like, Slayer and all those. They were the antithesis of that because they weren't pretty boys. They knew they weren't going to get that kind of crowd or following. So it was this is our response to that.
Well, even furthermore, grunge. I mean, the ultimate reversal. Yeah.
But you gotta give Kurt Cobain credit when you really listen to those songs. They're good. They're good. Yeah. They're good. They're actually good pop songs. When you take the melodies,
they are.
They're hooky. And I loved his guitar playing. I thought he the way he played, his style, it was cool. It fit the music. It was very cool.
Yeah, I agree. I do.
Yeah.
How about you, Mr. Darrell?
Okay, to round mine out, I had Metallica's 598 EP.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I would I would pop
That's
that
a great
into my cassette Walkman while I mowed the yard.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
and it really introduced me to like Killing Joke, which I
Yeah.
went on to really enjoy a lot, and Misfits. So yeah, that was a great one. Soundgarden's 1989 Ultra Mega OK, which
Wow.
they were nominated for a Grammy for Best Heavy Metal Record.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that.
So like what is heavy metal? What is grunge?
Right.
It's really all just fucking
It
rock and roll,
blurred
right?
there a lot.
Yeah.
Even for Alice in Chains' first album.
Yeah.
Could
Yeah,
almost
killer. Remember,
Right.
yeah, I love that. But okay, one last honorable mention: the first Queensryche EP with Queen of the Reich and the Lady
yeah.
Wore Black.
Yeah.
I used to play. I had that cassette. I used to play the hell out of that in my car.
Yeah.
And I always thought that I know they obviously had probably more produced, known records, but that first EP that put them on the radar for me.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, they kind of remind me of Priest in a way,
Sure.
but different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Tate is one of the greatest of all time. No question. Thank you all very, very much. I really do appreciate it. Great conversation. I really enjoyed getting to meet all of you face to face, at least.
Absolutely,
And,
Kevin.
go watch their. If you haven't seen Eric and Darrell's channel, and you grew up in the 80s, do yourself a favor. I swear you're gonna feel like that's you and your friends having the best time of your life. That's what's so cool about you guys' channel. You guys are always having fun. It's genuine and it's real. I'm very jealous that you guys, did what you did and said, you know what, this isn't just, it doesn't have to be scripted and everything. Let's just capture this moment. And I love it. So appreciate it. And then Eric Singer, thank you, man, so much. Definitely one of those people
Appreciate
that I've gotten to know through, YouTube and everything else. That I always enjoy your conversations because there's such a wealth of knowledge and everything else. And we'll get you back on if you're in for it, for doing some, a vintage audio segment and stuff. Because there's a whole nother side of you that I think people need to know about. So,
By the way, Kevin, I saw you went to that stereo kind of
Expona
convention. Where is that?
It's in Chicago.
I had no idea about it. I never even heard of it. And I watched your episode. I'm like, why did I never know about this?
Oh, go next year, man. We'll go. Just let me know.
I was like blown away. And you showed some cool stuff. And then those other guys that you've had on your show, that guy Aaron and that guy Stereo Niche, some of those guys, I've watched their channels too.
Sure.
And I'm like, wow, this is like right up my alley. So
it's so fun, man. It is definitely.
I wish I would have known.
I'll remind you next year if it's something you can make it to.
I would definitely like to go to that. That seems cool.
Yeah.
I mean, how much time did you spend there?
We got there Thursday and we left Saturday afternoon. I mean, it goes for another couple of days, but I feel like a day is about, what I can digest before my brain.
Right.
It's like Vegas, man. I mean, there's, literally you're going from room to room. It's like an audio over sensory type thing.
Oh yeah.
Sensory overload.
Yes. There you go. Yeah. So,
but you showed some cool product there. There was one product in particular, but I'm trying to remember now what it was, that I thought, wow, that's really cool. That's what's great about your channel. Kevin will introduce you to something that you go, oh, that's really cool. And, you discover new stuff. And that's what's great about that. People have become very communal with it, sharing knowledge. It's not a competition about who knows more, who's got more expensive, better crap. Who cares about
No. Yeah, it's what grabs you. And that's the beauty of YouTube. I mean, look at this right now. The four of us just had a conversation about metal. And, we're just kind of sharing our opinions. And, I love YouTube. I'm the biggest fan of YouTube for that reason.
Yeah.
Well, YouTube is the biggest #1 platform of any type of social
all
media.
the streamings.
Social media. It's YouTube is #1.
Totally. And it should be. I don't think Netflix and, media really has much to stand on.
Not anymore.
Forward. Yeah, I don't think that. Yeah. I agree. Well, thank you all very, very much. I really appreciate it. And
Thanks, Kevin.
absolutely.
Thanks. Yeah.
Invite me on your live stream sometime.
Yeah.
Man. I'd love to come on there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, please. Yeah, we'll see you all later.
Awesome.
Thank
All
you.
right, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.